Hello, friends. It's Thanatos Magus, and I have another what if. What if the Men of Iron are just having a truce? What if that war isn't over? Now, we know from lore that when the Men of Iron were defeated, they agreed to basically shut themselves down. I don't quite see the Men of Iron committing, quote, suicide for even a peace agreement. They would be more than likely, in that case, to fight to the last man. Because, after all, being an artificially intelligent device, given the right information and programming, it wouldn't take but a handful to completely reconstitute their forces at some point. So I think that the Men of Iron retreating after their defeat is a part of a master plan. Now, as a fan of Warhammer 40k, there's been various, shall we say, creative people that want Warhammer 40k to expand in their different races. And I've always thought that the Men of Iron are the logical thing to bring back to Warhammer 40k. Especially since, the Emperor lived through those times. And this is another thing that I expect is a post Emperor something. I do expect in Warhammer 40k at some point for the Men of Iron to come back. I think it would be a great army for GW to add. I really do, personally. Now, let's get back to the Men of Iron. Now, the Men of Iron, being Men of Iron, they are immortal. So, there's the possibility of they're trying to Necron out on us and just sit there. But I don't quite think that is so. I think they gave time for alliances to fall apart, which of course they did, and them to become a memory. But I believe that they are just waiting. Now, being an artificially intelligent device, abominable intelligence, I expect they're planning some pretty abominable things. And considering at how fast they compute a second and how many seconds they have sat there, I think they've kind of figured out how to do some really horrible shit upon their return. Which is another reason why I think in Warhammer 40k this could be another of the big events that Big E will have to take care of on his return. Now, I've also given some thought because in various Black Library things, it has shown corrupted Men of Iron, Men of Chaos, we might say, though it's not quite an apt term. But our Men of Chaos, they shouldn't have souls. They should have no reflection in the warp. So, how is this happening that they can be corrupted by chaos? Well, I gave it some thought and came up with the theory that the humans put that upon them. Much like the Gestalt intelligence of the orcs, the humans believe the Men of Iron are such evil, it actually allows the corruption to seep into something that should be incorruptible by chaos because they have no signature in the warp. So, in essence, humanity, by vilifying, or in this case, demonizing the Men of Iron to a point, has actually allowed chaos to reach its tendrils in and get a hold of them. Now the question is how deep do those tendrils go? Does it go through all of them? Does it just go through some of them? But it seems that in these different encounters, we know you're finding very corrupted creatures. Now, you and I both know it's because that's the way the writers wanted it. But, as fans, we have to try to look at things in the world and make them all mesh and make sense. And when it don't, we make frowny faces and Arch Warhammer gets all snarky. But I digress. But this is what I think they're doing. Now, can you imagine, with their computing power and their time, the type of weapons and strategies that they have designed? I mean, during the war against humanity and everyone else, I'm sure they had their mistakes, and I'm sure they have sat there and covered that 1,000 times. So can you imagine where the Necrons shut down? I believe that the Men of Iron are still active. Now, for mechanical reasons, I think a lot of their fighters are pretty much turned off. But I think the important mechanisms of the Men of Iron, the leaders, and the scientists, I think they've been working. And I think that they're getting ready one day to come out. And once again, this is going to be another near unstoppable force. Much like we talked about of a great high fleet and how it's in its own way it would be a game over moment. This too could be a game over moment because you have the Men of Iron come out and they will be ready to whip everyone. And they will be ready to compensate for all the mistakes. You think Gilliman is good, is a strategist? These guys are going to put him to shame. Now, in Warhammer 40k, that would be a cool fight. You've got your ultimate strategist in Gilliman, and then you have your ultimate strategist in the AI mind. And that would really be a cool test. I mean, yeah, that would definitely hit my cool factor kind of high. Because it would be much like man against machine. And it would have to have the right author for that one. I don't think I could pull it off. But, that's my thought, is an eventual battle between Gilliman and the AI, man versus machine, using, well, forces as chess pieces, basically. But once again, it could be a very good concept for something future of GW. Because, I've sat for some time, and because everyone's afraid of, well, what happens when the Emperor returns? Well, there's enough great menaces out there. And there's a lot of people that say they wanted the Herud to be a new army. No. I mean, I want to scream Men of Iron because they are utterly cool. And they hit upon that primal fear of us all of technology. The deep down animal part. And once again, they have so much lore behind it, and with the return of the Emperor and all the things that he could tell us about these times in reveal, I mean, they would just make some epic stories. So in the comments below, put down what you think, or who you think that the next great army should be in Warhammer 40k. Now, everyone, have a good night and take care.